February. It's the first wrap up of the year, and I read 4 amazing books this month. I mean, they weren't all amazing. One was really amazing, the other were like really good. First book that I read in 2016 is Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover, and I did a full review about it because it was amazing, and I had to share all my feelings about that because I had a lot of feelings about this book. Colleen Hoover writes romancy type novels, and they're just so amazing, and this one was so good. And I read 3 books of Colleen Hoover so far. I've read Slammed, Confess, and Ugly Love. Ugly Love was just so amazing. It's just, oh, it's full of wonderfulness, and you gotta read it. But if you want to read it, be sure that you're ready to read about sex scenes, because there are 1 or 2 or more sex scenes in this book, but they're beautiful. It's so well done, and I love it. I love it. If it's not clear already, I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I would have given it 100 stars if it were possible. There wasn't anything bad about this book. Like I said before, I did a full review about it. I'll link it down below in the description box so you can go check it out if you want to hear all my details about this wonderful book and these wonderful characters and this wonderful author. The next book that I read in 2016, January 2016, was Passenger by Alexandra Bracken. Now, I was a little hesitant to pick up this book just because I had read The Darkest Minds last year and I didn't enjoy it as much as I would have wanted to. I mean, everybody was hyping up this book so bad, and I really didn't enjoy it. It was okay, but it wasn't like, oh my god, it's so good, but it wasn't that good either. And it was like it was not a love-hate relationship. It was like kind of a disappointment. It was a disappointment. And when I heard that she was coming out with this one, it was about time travel, I was like, okay, I'm gonna give this one a shot. I mean, just because I didn't like her other book doesn't mean I won't like this one, and I'm so glad I gave it a shot. It was really good. I really enjoyed it, and I think it's going to be a duology. The way that the time travel is done in this book is so cool because you can jump through time, but you have to be on the same day all the time. So let's say today we're February 3rd, 2016, and I want to jump 10 years in the future. It's going to be February 3rd, 2026. You can live life through that year, but every time you jump, you're gonna land on the same day that you were last in the last time period. It's complicated if you don't read it, but it was really good, and I love the characters and the time periods that they went into. It was so fun going in different times that I've never read about, and it was just a lot of fun. So I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars, if I'm not mistaken. The next book I picked up, I wasn't at all planning on reading it, but my dad asked me if The Martian was going to be on Netflix, and I looked it up, and it's coming out this month on Netflix. So I was like, well, might as well read the book if I want to watch the movie, right? So I can compare it. And I heard a lot of good things about The Martian. So I just took a little stroll to the bookstore and picked it up. Like I always do. So The Martian by Andy Weir. Very entertaining. It's about this guy who gets left behind on Mars after something goes wrong on their expedition there. And he has to survive on Mars for 4 years on his own, and he has to figure out a way to have enough food and enough water and enough oxygen to get through 4 years on Mars all by himself, and he has no contact with Earth, and it's a scary thing to think about. But the way that, what's his name again? Mark Watney, the way that he just figures everything out and the way that he tells you what he's doing, you don't have to know anything about science to understand this book, because he tells you what he's doing, but it's not in a complicated format. Some things you have no idea what he's telling you, but you still understand what's going on. So it was just brilliantly done. So Andy Weir, I applaud you for making me understand a little bit more about science, you know, chemistry, physics, biology, and it was funny. How can a guy be stranded on Mars be funny, you ask? He's sarcastic, that's the thing. He's sarcastic and he can joke with himself being stranded on Mars. It's amazing. I love this guy. Some parts were a little bit slower where he's still like telling you he's doing this and he's doing that, but it was really fun. The ending was superb. Everything was fantastic. I really loved it. 4.5 out of 5 stars, I think. And the last book that I picked up in January of 2016 was The Eyes of the Dragon by Stephen King. Now, if you are aware about Stephen King, which most of us are, you probably think he writes horror stories all the time, which he does mostly all the time, write horror stories, but in 1987, I think it's 1987, give me a second here. Yes, in 1987, Stephen King wrote a fairy tale for his daughter, Naomi King, and it's about, a world where there is a king and his 2 sons, and I can't really tell you what it's about, really. There's Eyes of the Dragon in the story, but there's not really a dragon in the story. You gotta read it to figure out, but it was really good, a really fun fantasy read, and it's Stephen King. Everything he writes is so good, and it's so easy to dive into it. It's fantastic. My mom has loved Stephen King for years now, and she read this the week before I read it, and she was like, you have to read this one. You just gotta pick it up. So I did, and it was so good. So if you want to read a Stephen King book and you're not too sure which one to pick up and you're not a fan of horror stories, get this one. It won't disappoint you, especially if you're a fan of YA, because the characters in this book are 18. It starts from like the main characters being 8 until they're like 20 something. So it's like a little lifespan in this book of 380 pages, and it was just really good, and I really enjoyed it. And let me just tell you, it's a good Stephen King book to start off with. So I gave this one 4.5 out of 5 stars, I think. Really enjoyed it. All the characters were so much fun, and again, like I said, the way that Stephen King just tells a story is so good. And it ended on kind of a cliffhanger, but there's nothing that comes after it. So you have to imagine it for yourself, what happens to the main characters and what's gonna happen in the future. So it's like, I want more of it, but there's nothing. There is nothing at all that he wrote after it, so it's okay. So these are the 4 fantastical books that I read in January, and they were all really good. I mean, the lowest thing I gave was like 4.5 stars, so that, if that doesn't tell you anything, I don't know what does. So, let me know what your favorite book of the month was. Mine was Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. So good, so good. That's gonna be it for this video. I will see you guys really soon. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you want to see more of my videos, if you want to get notified every time I upload one. So I will see you guys really soon with a brand new video. Bye!